Hey guys, we're going to continue looking at ancient civilizations and their accomplishments, specifically the ancient Romans, what caused them to fall, and what the United States could learn from them falling. All right, we're going to quickly look at what an empire is and if the United States would qualify as a modern day empire. We're going to look at the rise of Rome and the fall of Rome. And then your homework, just a reminder that news reflection that was posted on Friday will be due today by midnight. The fall of Rome paragraph that you're going to get today will be due the 13th, so that's a week from today. And you guys actually have 38 more days till the end of the term. Ignore this 43, that's incorrect. So go ahead and keep up the good work at making sure that your stuff is turned in so your grade is exactly where you want it to be once it's final at the end of the term. Okay, so what is an empire? We're going to quickly summarize and think quickly if the United States would be a modern day empire. So it doesn't matter how much land the empire has or the civilization has, it's measured by power and wealth, so how rich and powerful they are. Its technical definition would be like a political system in which a strong central state controls weaker outside states. And this control can look very different. It could be very strict control where the empire is making their outside states pretty much act just like them. Or it can be very loose control where they're like, do whatever you want, you crazy kids, just remember we own you. And the result of this empire, the reason why they do this is because they want more power, more wealth, and more resources and control. So go ahead and think about what you know about the United States. In class, we did a do now where we just kind of looked at a map that showed some of the territories that the United States owns today, including Puerto Rico. So we do control some outside states. Our control is usually pretty loose. So thinking about the qualifications of an empire, does the United States qualify as a modern day empire? All right, for the rest of the day, what you're going to be doing, you don't have to write down this stuff. Just go ahead and write down what life was like in the Roman Empire, and then a little section where you're taking note on the causes of the fall of Rome. So this first part, the slides, we're going to go over super quick, and it's just going to be what life was like in that empire. So the Roman Empire has mythical origins. This statue really weirds people out when they don't know the story behind it. So the story behind the mythical origins of Rome is that there were these two orphan brothers who were twins, Romulus and Remus, and they were lucky enough to find a she-wolf who was able to raise them. And then Romulus went on to be the first king of this teeny tiny little city-state, which eventually became this big, strong empire known as Rome. Romulus, Rome. There's a lot more details to it, but you really don't need to know. But it explains the statue, so if you ever see it, you'll be able to say, I know that story. All right, here are the actual origins. Julius Caesar was the first dictator or ruler, and he was super duper strict. He was the person who made all the laws. Even though they had a Senate who was supposed to make the laws, it was actually Julius Caesar. The Senate was just there for decoration under Julius Caesar. Augustus Caesar was his nephew, and he was the first emperor. So when people say first emperor, they're talking about Augustus Caesar, even though Julius Caesar was the king before him. Augustus Caesar was more balanced in power. He used the Senate appropriately, they still had power. He didn't take all the power. And he had this thing called Pax Romana, where there was Roman peace under his reign. This doesn't mean that everyone got together and sang Kumbaya. What was happening is Augustus Caesar was going to these neighboring lands and he was conquering them. So Rome would be right over here. He was going into northern Africa. He was going into parts of the Middle East and parts of Europe and taking over those civilizations. He would find leaders within those civilizations and have them pledge allegiance to Rome. And in order to keep them from uprising, he would kind of pay them. He'd be like, thanks for being a Roman citizen or pledging your allegiance to Rome, and he would give them some money. So the leaders were more willing to pledge their allegiance and more willing to follow the Roman Empire and more willing to put down any rebellions against the Roman Empire. This was super expensive. So in order to make sure that they had enough money to do this, they put out this thing called a census, where they were keeping track of the people in the area, their ages and household income and stuff like that. So that way they could more efficiently collect taxes. This should sound a little familiar. All right, so life in the Roman Empire. There was a huge wealth gap. Like there was people who were super duper rich, people who were super duper poor, and not really an in-between area. The really rich people had very lavish lifestyles. They were the ones that were like laying sideways on the couches, getting fed grapes and stuff like that. What you would normally stereotypically think of the Roman Empire. The extremely poor would be exactly what you think it is, where they have very little resources, living in the poorer sections of town, so on and so forth. One way to get out of that the poorer class was joining the Roman military. And of course, this was only if you were a male, a Roman citizen, and above the age 17. This was actually a really nice deal because you got a retirement plan. Like if you survived the Roman military, they would pay you a retirement plan. And this was something that they wouldn't have gotten before if they just had continued living in that poor lifestyle or as a slave. All right, the chariot races and gladiators. These are some things that you might see or know of in the Roman Empire. The gladiators was a form of entertainment where they had these very tough soldiers that were either fighting each other to the death or even fighting animals to the death. So a bloody form of entertainment, but still that was their Hulu and Netflix. Chariot races, very similar. It wasn't just like, hey, let's watch the ponies go around in a circle. It was like kind of to the death sort of a thing. So a lot of people fell off of these chariots and they were ran over or stampeded to death. All right, I'm not going to make you watch this video. You watched a video yesterday that kind of explained what life was like in the Roman Empire. If you want to go ahead and add what you noticed in that video to your notes, you can. If you want to go back to yesterday's post and rewatch it, that's absolutely fine as well. All right, so for some reason, the DBQ documents that we're going to use wouldn't let me post on Google Classroom, but it let me upload it to email. So I'm going to email you a copy of the DBQ, and you're going to use those primary sources to determine the causes of the fall of Rome. All right, just remember Alphonse the Camel. We read that story at the beginning of the school year. It doesn't take just one straw to break the camel's back. There's usually a lot more behind that one straw. So as you read those DBQs, you're going to go ahead and just record your evidence as you go. I'm going to go ahead and open up the DBQ, what it'll look like when you open it up on your email. So this first page is just kind of expanding more upon what life was like in the Roman Empire. If you want to read it so you have more background, that's fine. Otherwise, you can go ahead and skip to document A, and we'll kind of go over that one super duper quick as an example because that's what we did in class. So this one is talking about the emperors, how long they ruled, and the cause of their death. You do not have to answer these questions at the bottom, the document analysis, just on your own separate sheet, recording the causes of the fall of Rome. The nice thing about these questions is they do kind of guide your thinking, so it makes it a little bit easier. So you can go ahead and take a look at this, take a look at the cause of death specifically. I don't know why my phone's going crazy, sorry about that. All right. So looking at these questions, how many Roman emperors ruled during a 50-year period covered by this chart? How many died a natural death? How many were victims of assassination and possible assassination? Okay, so it looks like there was a lot of assassination, especially towards the end. Okay, so that's kind of getting me to theorize maybe what caused Rome to fall. I'm going to go ahead and read this next question so I can feel a little bit more confident in my answer. What message might these frequent and violent changes in leadership have sent to people of the Roman Empire? So if I was living in Rome, I wouldn't necessarily feel safe, especially towards the end, because it looks like our leader is being assassinated frequently. It might be hard for them to pass laws too, because the leader's being assassinated frequently. We might look weaker to other civilizations or empires because our leader's being assassinated frequently. Okay, I'm going to read this one last question just to kind of help guide my thinking. I think I have an idea. I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but I'm just going to double check. What message might these frequent and violent changes in leadership have sent to people living outside the Roman Empire? Okay, so definitely guiding me into the answer of there was a weak leadership, especially towards the end. It looks like people were being killed a lot more, our leaders were being killed a lot more. I'm going to guess that it's probably from people outside the empire. So for my causes, for number 4, how does this document help explain the decline of the Roman Empire? You don't have to answer it on here. Remember, on your own sheet of paper. So you took notes on life of the Roman Empire, and then at the bottom, go ahead and take a few notes just on the causes. For my cause from this document, I would say weak leadership or frequent assassinations of the leader of Rome. And that's all you have to write down. And then go ahead and go to document B, read that one. And if you need help kind of figuring out what the cause was, go ahead and just use these questions to guide you. You don't have to go through all 4 or 5 questions. If you feel like, I have an idea, I got it by question 3, you can go ahead and in your notes write down that cause of the fall of Rome. Once you're 100% finished with those documents, it's only a few this time, it's not as long as Alexander the Great. Once you are finished, you're going to go back and you are going to, see, where's my Google Classroom? You're going to go ahead and start practicing for the test by doing a little writing assignment. So here's why we're doing that. Remember, this is the rubric to help you with your writing assignment on the test. Your test is not going to be multiple choice. It's going to be a short essay. And this is the exact rubric that I'm going to be using when I'm grading your test. So this is going to be practice for your test. So when you get to the test, you don't have to worry necessarily about like formatting your writing. You'll feel way more comfortable with those expectations. So there is a Google document on Google Classroom where you're just going to answer this writing prompt. Using the Roman Empire as a cautionary tale, so this means like something you can learn a lesson from, what advice would you give the United States to maintain its power? Remember, we kind of said that the United States could be considered a modern-day empire. What could the United States learn from the Roman Empire so they don't end like the Roman Empire? Make sure that you have a claim that introduces the writing topic, and then use specific names, details, dates, and examples. Usually the rule of 3 works when doing like a short essay where you give 3 specific examples. And then make sure that you have a conclusion that makes the writing prompt relevant. And of course, make sure you actually answer the question. So don't just write about how great Rome is. Make sure you write down why it failed and what the United States could learn from that. Once you're finished, you can go ahead and turn that in and you'll be good to go. If you have any questions, go ahead and email me, text me. This is going to be due a week from today on the 13th. Good luck.